Hello and welcome to that time of the week where I talk all about what Tinto Talks has been talking about. It is time for their weekly wrap-up of all the news and information, and if you would like to keep up to date with all the news and information coming out for Project Caesar, then the best place to be is right here. So if you want to throw me a sub, I will get a sub, you will stay up to date, it's a win-win. Let's get into it, and we'll start off with the Saturday building as per usual. This is the Chancery, and again, the icon that is being used for it is just a placeholder right now. This is not what it's going to look like. We've had quite a few buildings that look like the Chancery so far. But it is a capital-only building that monarchies, republics, and theocracies can build. It will increase the efficiency of your cabinet, and it can be upgraded, though I believe it is just the efficiency that will be upgraded. I don't think it's going to increase the max literacy when upgraded, as far as I understand it. There's actually no confirmation on that or not, just a lot of, I guess, speculation, let's say. But that seems to be the case here. Production method as well is, quite extensive. You're going to require lumber, metalworking, glass, fine silks, books, gold, and I believe this one is marble. Fine cloth, sorry, not fine silks. So quite a hefty production method, and also quite a hefty production or construction cost as well. But I think it's probably going to be worth it for making the cabinet just that much more efficient. Can it still be built outside of the capital? If it's not in the capital, it gives no effects whatsoever. The building also has 2 levels. The second level is unlocked by redacted, so I'm assuming this is some kind of technology. We had a question about estate buildings, a little bit off topic. What happens to building made by an estate if the location is conquered? Some buildings get destroyed, some don't. Estate buildings are very likely to not be destroyed upon conquest, which is good to know. What happens in personal unions for the Chancery? What if multiple of the countries in a personal union have a Chancery? Well, a union is multiple countries with multiple capitals, so I guess both countries get to, get the benefits of their Chancery. Slightly, we're moving off the topic of the Chancery, but there was this really very good comment or thread being made just today by the Dwarven guy, which basically said that glass should be extremely important for scientific buildings. Most of the glass he's seen used in Project Caesar have been as a construction material, definitely reasonable for luxury buildings like cathedrals, but during the time period, glass played a role as less as a building material and more of a luxury in and of itself. Things like the telescope were invented during this period, which allowed for, being able to, well, was it during this period or was it just before? It was close to this period where the telescope was first invented, and then in the later periods, the microscope being invented. Both of those obviously utilize glass. But it just goes through a bit of the reasons why glass should fit as a scientific production good. It's hermetically sealable, chemically inert, easily workable in small setups with blow lamps, clarity uses of measuring and moderating substances. Use in early science was reliant on glass telescopes to thermometers, Leyden jars, pretty much all chemistry equipment, etc., etc. Really, really good post. If you want to read it all, obviously you can pause the video. But Johan just basically came back with, yeah, no, it's a valid point. Fair, valid point. Okay. And that's literally all there has been on this thread so far, is just Johan saying valid point. At the moment, the scientific buildings mostly use books and paper, but he is going to be adding some glass. So this just shows once again that you have, a voice when it comes to this game, and if you have a good point and you can articulate it well, like this guy has, it doesn't even matter if you are not on the forums yet. This guy has 6 comments total on the entirety of the forums, and signed up to them like a month ago, or a few months ago. A month ago and a bit. Yeah, I forgot what month it was. It's still June. It's still June. But yeah, this is the way to go. This is the way to go. And I think I do need to keep pushing this idea that, you know, if you have an idea for the game, if you have a complaint about the game, if you have a critique or a suggestion, then really you should be getting on the forums and offering those, because then we can help make this game the best that it possibly can be. Another thread here: societal values and how to game them. Basically, we have somebody a little bit worried about people metagaming, I guess, or not really metagaming, but using player knowledge to play the game in a way that maybe isn't historically accurate, but is more better for gameplay wise, or stronger, etc. Because the player is not the ruler, is not the individuals within the country. The player isn't around in the country for 20 years with that short level of knowledge over their country. You know, they know the history, they know the 20, 30-year period they're going to rule, and then they're dead, right? That's the ruler, the king. Probably, it's longer than that in most cases, obviously, or I don't even know if in most cases, but on average, let's say 30 years. But the player isn't that. The player is going to be taking control in 1337 and controlling up until they decide that the game is no longer fun and they start a new game. Or 500 years, whichever one comes first. So we get the benefit of long-term planning that rulers of the period just won't be able to do. Things like, yeah, we will not rule for 20 to 30 years. We'll rule for centuries, enacting a perfect master plan for our nation since the very beginning. Are we going to be taking the short-term gain, long-term pain options when it comes to laws, when it comes to policies, etc.? Or are we going to be taking the things that are going to benefit us in the long run, because we, as players who will rule for, you know, hundreds of years, will be seeing that benefit, whereas a ruler who is only there for 20, 30 years won't be doing those long-term things in most cases because they don't see it. They don't know what technology is going to be coming up in the future, for example. So, yeah, that kind of way. And Johan had a really good response to this. If I go on show on the thingamabobs, the guy says, it's pretty unavoidable that some moves are going to be objectively better from an optimization point of view. And Johan's response was, one thing I've noticed from playtesting feedback is, I had problem X and I solved it by Y. Except multiple people have had problem X, and that Y is different from person to person. Y was multiple different Ys, so multiple different problem solvers to each problem. So maybe the 34th way of solving the problem was maybe 1% superior to the 12th, and the 13th was 5% superior to the next 5. But the thing is, there are so many solutions to challenges right now. So maybe to give a potential example, say you are suffering from population decline in a certain area. That is your problem. And now you want the why, you want the problem solver, you want the salve to the issue of your population is declining. Maybe you are going to increase the infrastructure in this area to maybe encourage more migration there, to increase the amount of burghers or nobles that want to be in this location. And then that will bring the population back up as more people start migrating there. Maybe you want a quick fix, and you will use your cabinet to encourage migration there. Maybe you will start a new market there. Maybe that will help increase migration, but there's going to be many different salves to various different problems. His response was, that's so great to hear. You guys are brilliant. And Johan glazing his team a bit, which, I mean, fair enough. I mean, he put them together. I'm pretty happy that he's happy with his team, for sure. Another thread here. Level of granularity and visual display of character stats in Tinto Talk 16. So, this is about the 1 to 100 character stats that we saw, where every character would have their admin, their diplomatic, and their military skill between 0 and 100. Now, I am personally a fan of obfuscated statistics like this, obfuscated data, because I think if I'm playing as England, I shouldn't know the 0 to 100 character stats of somebody in, Southeast Asia, right? It's just not something that I am going to be aware of. It's not something that I should be aware of. However, these will, in all likelihood, be available and visible from the very off. I really like the idea of hiding these stats and making them more visible as you maybe get more information on a country, maybe via some espionage system. That's what I really, really want to see. I don't know if that is going to be a thing that happens, though. This guy's suggestion was not especially too well received, but I guess he was also talking about his own characters. But basically, he was suggesting that instead of having the 1 to 100 be visible, maybe you could rank it from 1 to 10, whereas within 1 there is that still, two people with a score of 3 out of 10 would not be the same 3. It'd be, one could be 32, one could be 37, and basically be the same. Or if the devs want to keep the 1 to 100 system, maybe color the numbers in different shades to give a stronger visual cue. It already is. It literally already is. But if we go to the dev responses again, Johan's response is, masking attributes hurts players. And sure, but I don't really care about that. I think it is a perfectly valid thing to mask some attributes. There is a really popular mod now for a CK called Obfuscate with the CK, Kate, which is very good and does what I want. And I have a feeling that I was very influential on Imperator in getting health of characters to be obfuscated. Because it used to be that you could see the exact number and you could see how much it was declining per month. And when it hit 0, they would die. So that meant you could perfectly calculate, bearing in mind no extra negative traits would come up, you could calculate the month of death of somebody years and years in advance, which obviously is a little bit silly. So I feel like my dislike of that, and continuing to talk about that and make suggestions about that, was part of the reason that got changed into being a lot more obfuscated, and I am a fan of obfuscation in this area. But I don't know if that is going to be translated into Project Caesar or not. But anyway, the reason for 0 to 100 is to make an easier algorithm for character development, and also make it more clear to the player what is good and bad, as 0 to 100 is usually something we can think of easily. That's fair, though if you look at, say, IMDb scores, I mean, I guess that's 0 to 10, but they do include decimals, so we'll go with it, or Rotten Tomato scores, people looking at like a 7 out of 10, they think that's bad, whereas I think, a 70 out of 100 for a character stat is looking already pretty decent in Project Caesar. And then the guy asking for color coding, there is already color coding, gold icon for high stat, silver for middle, and bronze for low, and then there is a purple for greater than 90, which is good to know for sure. Moving on to another thread, I'm going to throw out the opinion there, but he really finds Victoria 3 and CK3 table objects to be cool. They're fine. I mean, I do think this does look cool, but I don't think this looks cool enough to really care all that much about. I wouldn't be sad to not see it. And then with Vicky, you can apparently choose what exactly is on your table. I don't really care for it. I said EU4's wooden border with the game name at the top is better than their waste of kilobytes. Maybe I should have put waste of kilobytes here. Literally just this would be enough to put forth my opinion. I think this is worse than EU4's situation. So I'd be perfectly happy with EU4's situation to come back. But there was, of course, responses to this as well. St. Dave saying he thinks it looks really flippin' cool. CK3IS did a great job. You can tell you had a lot of fun with it, but I think it's better use of our limited 3D resources to spend effort on things you'll see all the time, like the world map and units. I fully agree with this. So far for release, we're only planning a simple frame as in EU4. Perfect. That's what I want to see. That's really what I want to see. They also hope to see more variety of unit models, not just the fixed form in EU4 that 4 tiers for one country. Tier 1 will always use polearm, Tier 2 if 4 always use musket. Someone else can decode what this means, I guess. So for releases, not out of the question a later DLC to add the 3D assets. So I guess this is somewhat going into like the DLC policy. The needs of the project, expectations of fans, available resources, and even which people make the decisions are constantly varying on a live game. As such, very few things are ever permanently out of the question. If for some reason it becomes prudent to make this kind of content for DLC in 5 years' time, we can do it, but it's not something we are expecting right now. Makes sense. Moving on, though, I don't remember if I showed this in the English responses, but this was there was a bit of a split in the community, basically asking, we should have Northern English, Southern English, and this was one of the suggestions that was given for Northern English culture. I can't remember if I showed this off or not. I think maybe I did, but there's also more to do with England, because we also have a bit of an update to the English counties to add a bit more granularity. This is what it is going to be potentially upgrading to, and I'm not counting like every single extra province that has been added, but just to make a comparison with what it used to be, is right here. It's hard to get these things lined up, so especially because this one has Ireland in it, so I'm not going to bother. But if you look at places like Lynn, Yarmouth, and Norwich, and then here this has gotten extra 2 territories, and I mean, there's just more going on, right? So that is obviously very, very nice. Ripon is starting with a lowercase. Get wrecked, Ripon, I guess. But yeah, no, this is looking a lot nicer. A lot more granularity is very much appreciated from my point of view. I am hopefully more to come, And as well, this was something from a little over a week ago. As I mentioned, a couple of other threads, they're currently working on feedback on Tinto maps of the French region. Location density will be similar to Iberia and less than the Low Countries in Italy. Sneak peek of this is the former location of Paris, which was a little big, as it was portraying Ile-de-France, and now it's a little bit more subdivided. Paris being surrounded by uncolonized, let's say, because it needs to be quarantined. But yeah, no, this looks a lot better. Workers designed that Paris is now isolated from the rest of the world, naturally. But yeah, no, I like this more granularity, especially in the more played locations. I am entirely a fan of. Or not even the most played locations, the more populous locations, the more populous regions. I think is just a good idea to have it split up more if there's more people. Going on to the Russia Tinto map from Friday. Can we make our own mini HRE in Russia? The Tatyok is kind of like that. Russia, on the other hand, is a formidable unified empire. Makes sense. Beautiful post here. Lovely stuff. Will you guarantee that Muscovy, despite its size of the game style, will be the top dog and eventually form Russia? I think the answer to this should have been no. Nor is it a good thing. I don't want to guarantee that any tag in any region eventually becomes the top dog. I don't want to guarantee that the Ottomans in Anatolia do it. Success most of the time is even pushing it. I don't want every single one of my games to feel exactly the same. I want the game to have more agency over itself than just what I put into it. If I am playing around the Anatolian region and I directly influence the course of the Anatolian region, sure, I can expect that maybe my actions are not going to lead to the rise of the Ottomans every single time. But I also want me playing as England to not see the rise of the Ottomans every single time, because that's boring, right? I feel, I don't know if I'm alone in this. I know I disagree with Father Loris on this a little bit. He wants a bit more of a push in a historical direction than I personally do. But yeah, no, especially using the word guarantee here is a bit silly in my opinion. But the answer to this is Muscovy starts in a strong position to become the historical winner, but it is an open situation with Novgorod being the other important Russian power and the Golden Horde still being the hegemon to the south, although it may collapse as it historically happened, of course, but maybe not always. Will the game simulate the decline and eventual partitions of the Commonwealth? In E4, the PLC is ridiculously overpowered, and in most games, AI Russia stagnates and is incapable of advancing westwards. So Poland and Lithuania will have some curveballs depending on how they behave, and the formation of the Commonwealth is not guaranteed. Good. These things should not be guaranteed. We are not portraying the 18th partition, though, as that would make a little sense. Makes sense. Yeah. I don't know if 18th partition is like a historical event. I know of like the deluge, and I know obviously they got partitioned a few times. 18th, I didn't know it was that many times though. I'm not gonna lie. Will the conquest of Siberia be slightly different from normal colonization, as real-life Russia's expansion to the east was relatively fast? It's also not only colonization; it's just straight-up conquest. There'll be some common and unique features for the conquest and colonization of Siberia. Makes sense. Maybe it's asking too much, but is there a chance you can add the Volga River physically? I want this. I want this. Game speaking in the form of a lake. Maybe not that. Maybe, I mean, I don't know. It would add visual detail to a massive portion of the map. Most of the times will be homogeneous, and it would also be interesting from a tactical point of view. Not in the plans. That's unfortunate. I do think that on-map physical rivers should exist. Not all of them. Not every single river should be there. But on-map physical rivers like the Danube, the Volga, the Dnieper, I probably butchered that pronunciation, I apologize, Rhine, Rhone, Seine, Elbe, like these very vast, huge rivers, I think should be on the map rather than visual elements placed on top of it. They should be elements that are between provinces. Like they're not elements that are just laid on top, but they would be things that would break up provinces, a bit like in Imperator Rome, right? I don't want them to be navigable. I'm anti-navigable rivers because I didn't think they worked in Imperator. I don't think they work in EU4, but I would like to see them be on the map and make it so that armies cannot cross them, but for certain locations, have straight crossings across the rivers in various locations. That, in my opinion, would be just better. It would look better. I would very much prefer that. Surprised how little marshes we've seen in Russia and earlier in Poland and Lithuania. If I remember correctly, just in the 19th century, about 800,000 square miles of such terrain was reclaimed by drainage in the Russian Empire. Here we barely got 150,000 of those, and I doubt more of them magically appeared between the 14th and 19th centuries. So Pavi's basically saying, yeah, give us some more feedback on where to put marshes. Sure, okay. I think in Victoria 2, especially, there is a lot of marshlands between Lithuania and Russia. So maybe look at Victoria 2's map. There'll be a little bit on there. Although how accurate that is, I don't know. I'm mostly going off the map in a game that might have also not been historically accurate. Who knows? Yeah. Will there be a way of unifying Russian, if not East Slavic, cultures, or are we going to be stuck with Severians? I've had a lot of comments on my own videos and a lot of comments that I've read. People not liking Severian as a culture. Again, I'm kind of ignorant of it. I'm looking at it from a gameplay point of view. That it might be better for it to exist, but if it truly is not a thing, then maybe it shouldn't be a thing. But I've seen a lot of responses by the Tinto staff saying that, maybe not calling it Severian, but there was a different dialect, so it would potentially make sense for it to exist. and I don't know whose word to take. I feel like I probably should take the Tinto side here, because, yeah, I don't know. It just makes more sense to me, I guess. But they'll talk about more culture mechanics in future Tinto maps. Basically, unifying cultures is something that I think should be a thing. Like in the England doodad, if you manage to unify North and Southern English into English, then, good job you. That should be a mechanic. Maybe the same could be here for Russian cultures. It seems like Finland is not colonized at the start. Is that correct? If yes, there are some sort of events for its colonization, or could a colonizing country come in and colonize it before the Scandinavians can claim it? Most of it's not colonized yet. Correct. It'll be possible to do through mechanics, of which we'll talk more about in the future Tinto talks. Yeah, I think I don't really see Spain being able to come and colonize it, because the coastlines were the bits that are, owned at the start of the game. It was the inland areas that are being shown as uncolonized. So I feel like that's probably not going to be a worry. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing colonization mechanics. What are the criteria for deciding what areas are impassable wasteland and what are not? The usual criteria is very little population lives here and it's impossible to move an army through here. From there, it may vary from wasteland to wasteland. Is there a reason the White Sea is composed of several tiles while the Gulf of Finland isn't? Different stages of development. The different shapes of sea tiles are something already noticeable in previous Tinto maps. There is plan tasks to homogenize them. Really, the big difference here is in Project Caesar, Scandinavia was one of the very first regions to be mapped out and laid out on the map. And then as they've gone and added more areas and done more development, they've increased the amount of granularity that they want in the game. That's why we're not seeing Scandinavia right now, I believe, is because it needs to have another pass to bring it up to the level of basically all the rest of the regions that were added with the higher level and of detail and granularity. So I think that's a good thing. That we're not getting it yet. I think waiting until that level of detail is added and then getting feedback, I think, is probably for the best. Will some lakes be navigable? If so, is the absence of tiling confirming that the Ladoga is not? Some maybe, but some not. The criteria is, would an oceanic fleet be able to come into the sea tile? If not, it won't be connected, as it would cause several problematic issues. It's already connected for markets and trading purposes through the rivers, though. Fair enough. Time to start a flame war about Eastern Slavic culture. Yeah, I mean, they had the Anatolia Dev Diary, then they're having the Russia Dev Diary, and next week they're going into the Balkan Dev Diary. We're just going to condense all of the flaminess into a consolidated 3-week period. But here is what we're basically talking about with this Severian thing. What is Severian supposed to symbolize? Does it exist? Is it a thing? But yeah, you can pause and read this guy's thread or his comment if you like. We usually take into account linguistics for cultural division. So Novgorodian portrays the northern dialects of Eastern Rus, Muscovite is the central dialect of Eastern Rus, and Severian is the southern dialects. But take this as an open answer. I think there might be reasons to unify the culture into Russian and also to further subdivide it, as another person pointed out on the previous page. We review all the informed opinions on the matter after a while. There it is. That's the key one here. And make a decision regarding that feel appropriate both for historical and game logical reasons. Thanks for the input as well. So yeah, there is a reason maybe to there not being a thing. There are reasons for it being a thing. There are reasons for it being split up even more. Who knows? Not me, so I'm not going to make any judgments on it. In cases where market access is really bad, what are the downsides to simply creating a bunch of markets with better access, other than the fact that it costs money, I guess? Ideally, you'd like to have a big market where good market access is available, as it fuels more resources into it and is easier to control. Creating new markets costs resources, but allows for better trading integration where market access is very low. Obviously, work in progress may not be the case by the game release, so take the words with a grain of salt. Okay. Is this a sort of a one-off situation? It's just the way things are at GameStar, or is it possible during normal gameplay for republics, or at least certain types of republics, to elect leaders from other countries? This is basically the situation that Novgorod is in at the start of the game, where its ruler is the same as the ruler for Muscovy, because it elected that guy's ruler. It will be possible for republics such as Novgorod to elect their leaders from other countries, yes, and also for some elective monarchies, as happened historically. So what we have here, obviously, is a situation where Novgorod starts with the same ruler as who is in charge of Muscovy. But election season will come around again, and another leader may well be elected. The thing I was worried about in my post on Friday, on my video on Friday, was that Muscovy would have some sort of ability as the elected ruler of Novgorod to change the system that Novgorod is under and basically keep control of Novgorod. I hope that's not possible. Or if it is possible, I hope it's very, very difficult, and the AI basically never does it. Because otherwise we're going to get a unified Russia so much earlier than is feasible or realistic or historically accurate. And while I am a fan of like not having 100% historical outcomes, I feel like that one might be a little bit beyond the pale for me. It's a little bit strong. So I kind of hope that doesn't happen. Should Muscovy rather be called Moscow to be consistent with all the other tags in the region? It's convention, one of two possible ways of naming the country. By the way, although it's not displayed in the map, the full dynamic name is the Grand Principality of Muscovy. But they're open to feedback if the community thinks that Moscow is more appropriate as the English form than Muscovy. I don't know about this one. I kind of feel like this very much is the name of the capital city, right? Muscovy is something that, I mean, I'm too used to from EU4, then maybe that's clouding the judgment a little bit here, and maybe I think it should stay as Muscovy because of that alone. So I guess I will defer to more informed minds on what this should be. To be honest, I don't know. Can we get some more zoomed in location maps of the region, particularly Western Russia? So this is a updated location area for Western Russia, if that is something you wanted to see. They considered breaking the map up a little bit more the week already, but Russia is just on the border of what can be seen and what not, so prefer to just post one map and offer more detailed ones if necessary. So yeah, I guess Moscow's probably visible on this map, right? Probably should be able to see it if I know where it is. I don't think I know where it is. But there's Rostov. I don't know. I don't see it. Well, there it is, right here. I feel like I'm searching for medicaments all over again. But yeah, no, that is an updated map for you, if that is what you want to see. Will the Cossack culture be implemented? They were Severians and Ruthenians who migrated to the steppe and formed a nomad-like culture. We definitely want Cossacks to be portrayed somehow in the game, although we're not yet to decide exactly how. And then finally on the maps, wondering if there will be a difference between ice-free and non-ice-free ports, and if so, will they have special mechanics? I really like the suggestion. I'm pretty sure it's been brought up before, and I'm pretty sure it was shot down as well, if I remember correctly. Basically saying that, you know, having changes to fleet access for, you know, 4, 5, 6 months of a year, and then it going back to normal and then changing, you know, it's very difficult for the AI to handle. It would be kind of infuriating for the player to handle. But maybe having some sort of modifier on ports to make them less efficient, depending on the season, might be the way to go. And I think that might be the best way. But anyway, that is enough about the Tinto maps and such. Now we go on, of course, back to the thread of laws and policies. I really liked what we saw on Wednesday with laws and policies. I think it was very informative. I think everything looked pretty good, but we have some more information to dig our teeth into. So, Nosgoth Kingdom here. Johan keeps hyping me up. You and me and everyone both. We wouldn't be here. The people watching this video wouldn't be here if not for Johan hyping us all up. It's better than even I expected for the Dev Diary. Very informative, great mechanics. Love the trade-offs of laws and values will provide. Also very much like things are not instantaneous and takes time to take effect. This one especially is very important to make note of. Makes the game be more about long-term strategy and commitment rather than short-term button-click for benefits, which was, in my opinion, the biggest downfall of release version Imperator, and kind of the biggest reason that game failed. But Johan here, I can't take credit for laws, privilege, etc. should take time to implement idea, as that was the idea of one of our content designers, Marcus, who suggested it during one of our weekly brainstorming sessions. We work with game design a bit differently here at Tinto, where we have no dedicated game designer ideas guys, but everyone can and does shape the features to the game. I'm there to make sure we follow the vision we set out and to be able to make the final yes-no decision, but Project Caesar is truly a collaborative design effort by our great team here in Sitgees. This is awesome. This is actually so amazing to hear, right? Having top-down dictatorial design is kind of bad, right? I very recently saw or read on the website Medium. There was a really long article by the, let's say, fall guy for the disaster that was Total War Rome 2's release, and I'm forgetting the guy's name, and I apologize. If I can find it, I'll put a link in the description for it. Basically, he was the guy who worked on the battle AI for Total War Rome 2. And Total War Rome 2 released in a really shit state, and he basically became the face of all the angst and hate and such from the community, because a couple of weeks before release, he was on he was basically on a video extolling all of the elements of the battle system, right? But he made this huge long article basically explaining his situation during the development of Rome 2, and basically essentially pointing the finger at, oh yeah, design team, management team, massive failure on their part. The reason that everything fell apart is because they were dictating, this is features we want, and basically implementing new ideas that should be made in the game without actually consulting the people making the game, the coders and such, the programmers. So it all fell apart basically because of the lack of communication, bad management. This is so much better. This is so nice to see, as it basically avoids that entire situation. Collaborative design is basically the opposite of what we saw in that Medium article. Here it is. Julian McKinley. He was on a Rally Point episode basically talking about the AI, and he got completely ripped apart by the community, and basically people thought he got fired for it, where he didn't. He was the guy mainly in charge of fixing Rome 2 after it released. So I definitely recommend going to read this. It is a, like I said, it is a long article, 58-minute read, but it is very much worth it. And I just think this is so nice to see that they are avoiding the creative assembly problems. So huge props to Johan for basically setting up this scenario, setting up this team, setting up this environment to make this game, and I think it is very good to see. And yeah, Cool Attack agrees. That's an awesome way to collaborate. Hope it all pays off so it can set a nice precedent. It's looking highly promising so far. Johan here, I kind of like it. Okay then. Usually they have playtime from 3 o'clock till 5 o'clock on Wednesdays. And after, people gather in the meeting room or the garden, depending on the weather, and start discussing gameplay feedback or a topic from the backlog. I usually don't attend for the first 35 to 40 minutes, as people may listen to me a lot, and I don't want to bias the creativity. And then I enter for 5-10 minutes to listen to what they have come up with and go doable, not doable, you have to think about X or Y, and then let them continue for 35 more minutes talking, and eventually we get notes at maybe half to 2 pages that often enough gets into the game. This is awesome to hear as well. The team has basically become really good at ironing out what will work and what will be good now after a few years of this. And it makes me, who's soon 50 years old and maybe 2 decades left working, happy to know I got some great people at Tinto that know how to make good game design decisions. He loves his Tinto team. So talented and great individuals. I love this so much. When I read this, I was almost tempted to just make a video just about these 2 comments. And I just think it is so incredible the way that this is functioning. I remember back in the day, right? I don't know whether this is some rumor, urban myth, whatever. Something that had been stated by somebody who wasn't in the know and then kind of oft repeated and then just became known as fact. But it was told that in the early days of Paradox, the developers would basically go to a pub to talk about design decisions, get drunk while talking about design decisions, and then all of the things that they remembered in the morning, clearly they were the good ideas, and then they get to work on making those. I don't know how true that is. It is just a story that I have heard. There is no mention of alcohol in either of these posts, but I imagine that it's somewhat similar, right? Not that, get drunk and remember good ideas, but that kind of very informal, very light-hearted, friendly way of back and forth talking about ideas and such is so much better than, Johan at the top of the table saying, yes, and we're going to have this thing, and Marcus, you are going to code this thing, and this is your... this just seems like a much better system to make a game. I don't know how the other teams at Paradox do it, whether it's similar, whether it's completely different, I don't know, so I'm not going to comment on it. But if this works, then it should be maybe copied, let's say. How do you decide what's to be a unique law tied and locked to a certain tag, so unique mechanics, tag-based mechanics, and what's to be broadly available but locked behind stringent requirements? I can look at things, but rather prefer it if implementation of a unique law might be tied to a rare opportunity and a perfect combination of skillful advisors and cultural and environmental circumstances to enable an RNG machine to produce super rare circumstances. For example, a non-Ottoman adopting some rare extra good Ottoman law. It's a good question. Usually, the thought process is to identify first what could be considered unique flavor content. Then we think about what triggers for it to be applied and thus decide whether it's something country-related, culture-related, religion-related, etc. Let's say if an institutional combination that would lead it triggering is deemed too complex or simplified through other means, then it may be simplified in a certain way. Let's put an example of something that I've already mentioned a few times in this thread. Don't know why so much, but whatever. The Inquisition Law, which is unlocked by redacted, probably technology, maybe an institution, maybe in an era, who knows. Currently it has 2 default policies for all the Catholic countries: papal control and local courts. There are a few institutional advances in some parts of the Catholic world that led to state inquisitors. One of the triggers for it is not being the Pope, obviously, and the other is culture tied, as a way of simplifying those institutional advances, making it available among others to Iberian countries. But then the other institutional advances made this Inquisition a key institution in early modern Spain for several reasons. We've simplified those into being the country Spain, which is a formable one with its own set of triggers to be formed, which therefore has another policy, Spanish Inquisition, available to pick. Obviously, the different sets of triggers on what deserves to be content for a country, culture, religion, etc. may be a matter of discussion, but I hope it's clarified the way they work with unique content. Yeah, I'm perfectly content with having unique content. I like having tag-specific mechanics. I think they increase the flavor of the game. Certainly some tag-specific content should maybe be more universal. I'm thinking CK3's Iberian struggle mechanic could be the struggle mechanic in a lot of different areas. But this is basically the way I think about it. I'm happy having unique content. It makes sense to me. Well, we have more naval laws related to cultures, like they have doctrines in EU4. Yes, many more unique per tag and culture. Good. There should be no drawbacks to having, more literacy. I think press should amplify the stability effects in this location, so it can be good, bad, depending on the stability. Literacy kind of does that already, as it impacts how they view price changes. Of course, less literate pops ain't going to be as angry about the prices of bread going up because they don't understand the numbers, I guess, is the way this is being kind of shown. But that is kind of how it mechanically works, it seems. The higher literacy, the more cognizant you are of price changes, and that might impact how happy you are if prices go up. Do I interpret incorrectly that the appanages of France can become the king of France? Would it merge the appanage and the France proper? Yes, pretty much sure the appanage goes back to being part of France. So if the appanage of Normandy, who is obviously the same dynasty as the king of France, becomes the king of France, then Normandy becomes part of France. So that could be a decent way of unifying the region, for sure. Sorry if you hear something in the background. The lawn robot is right outside my door. I apologize. Will these laws be voted on by the council? No. This is not CK3. Parliament and or the ruler decides. I assume at the start of the game, all laws that are available will have been preset depending on historical status of the country. Yes, it's all preset at the start with historical laws. That is very interesting because that is very different to what we have in EU4. If we say take the estate privileges as sort of the same kind of deal, right? No, or very, very few countries start with estate privileges enabled. Whereas it looks like here we'll have historical laws on, I imagine, all countries, but I feel like maybe most countries will be the more likely situation. Will it be possible to create our own religions? Only historical religions will exist. So Anglican will obviously probably be in. But you won't be able to just like invent brand new religions like in CK3. What legal code does Scotland use? Because it's a rare exception in Europe, which has a mixed legal system and follows both civil and common law. Scotland has common law for now, with the option to switch to civil law. Nothing stopping us from making unique legal code from them, though, if you have some suggestions on how it could work. Cool. See, the heir of France are named dukes. Is that just a generic name, or do they rule one of France's many subjects? Nothing to do with being an heir. They are the rulers of duchy countries. So yeah, the heir of France is in probably in an appanage, is what I'm reading from that. Will it be an EU4 style mission system or a HOI4 style focus system in the game? Neither. More similar to Imperatives, which has a 2.0 hybrid of those two. Alright, so we have known that mission trees are probably going to be a thing, right? We've had various hints and suggestions and comments about it, right? Johan being asked, will it have the EU4 mission system? He says no. Then someone saying, oh my god, no mission tree system, wow, great. And Johan saying, no, I said it doesn't like the EU4 one. I think this is maybe the first time where it's been absolutely confirmed that mission tree system will be in the game. And it's similar to Imperatives, which personally I think is great. I think the Imperative mission system is fantastic. I think you can basically port over every EU4 mission tree into the Imperative system if that's what you want to do. Obviously, I don't think that's what anyone really wants to do, but that it's possible, right? That's the way that it could work. So yeah, seeing this absolutely confirmed. It's not news. To me, it's not surprising to me, but it's nice to see it be absolutely confirmed again. I'm not a zealous 3D hater, but honestly, these look awful, especially the babies. The babies are literally a 2D image, right? The reason that I'm including this, right, is because the babies are on the UI, and they are a 2D image. Therefore, I put it to you that it would be possible to mod it so that those 2D images are also there for the rulers. And you be able to add 2D images for rulers. I feel like that's going to be possible. It's been hinted at being possible in both the dev diaries, but it's on characters. But it's not been outright confirmed, and I don't think this is outright confirmation either. But 2D images are there, so you'd imagine that they could be expanded somewhat. Can we expect the Inquisition as part of religious laws? Yes, there's an Inquisition law which, with 5 different policies, some of which are common for all Catholic countries, some are unique, and of course there's a Spanish one, as everybody expected. A few questions come to mind. Can laws be forced through by the estates if they're powerful or unhappy? If they're powerful, yes. Can a law change cause revolts that aim to return to a previous law? It's not implemented yet, but it's something that they're talking about. And can they force law changes through warfare, like abolishing slavery or ending serfdom? It's a good idea and something they could add to later ages. I'm thinking of basically when Britain abolished slavery in the Empire. It then kind of took it upon itself as its moral duty to force other European countries to also stop their slave trade. If you look on Wikipedia or whatever for the Anglo-Portuguese Treaty, I'm sure there's more than one, but one of them is England or Great Britain forcing Portugal to stop the Atlantic slave trade. The Anglo-Dutch Treaty, there was an Anglo-French Treaty. I can't remember others off the top of my head, but during Great Britain's time as a moral arbiter of Europe, self-described, I guess, they did very much stop other countries from engaging in the slave trade, and also they had the West Africa Squadron spending absolute gigatons of money to stop the boats. They stopped other kind of boat. They stopped slave ships, and we spent a shit ton of money on that as well. So I do think this is a good idea to have the ability to go to war with somebody to prevent them from engaging in the slave trade. Is definitely something that the British would do if they didn't agree to those treaties. So yes, having this would be great. How does the gradual change towards a policy work? Do we get 10% of its desired effects and it gets its full bonuses over time? Or is it related to sliders? So if it's 0.1 per month and it takes 2 years for it to be effective, then the first month will be 0.1 times 1 over 24. Second month will be 0.2 times, etc. So the maths out, probably. Then, especially the naval doctrines are disappointing. At least the others nudge your national values or impact state relations, but these are just naval combat modifiers that will be lost with all the other naval combat modifiers you stack. I mean, stacking modifiers is something that they are wanting to avoid as much as possible. Many of these don't make sense to be mutually exclusive anyway. They used to have naval doctrines as their own feature, but it got merged into the law system about a year ago. They're a bit lackluster and could use some estate and society impact as well. So it's something that they will go and look at and update, I guess. So it's good for it to be pointed out, just as a reminder that, yeah, this isn't amazing, and it could be. So you've got to work on it. What does the eligibility mean for succession laws? Why does how many points you have matter? It's a generic system used by different succession laws, which makes it easier for us and potentially modders to portray very different types of succession without requiring completely different succession-related coded features. You could hide the points, and I guess that would come to the same effect. It would be more historically, or it would feel more historically accurate, that the player wouldn't know exactly who's going to get elected. Or the reasons behind it, but I feel like having the numbers there is fine too, and if it makes it better for the AI, for the code, for modders, and for us to understand it, I'm totally happy with it. While not personally against some tag-specific content, I'm thrilled to see that Project Caesar will have culture and religion-specific laws. Is having a religion, culture, and religion-specific content a part of the design philosophy for Project Caesar in general? It's a goddamn pillar of the game. which is awesome to see. I like culture, religion, tag-specific content. Having everything be homogenous is how you end up with a bad game that fails. You said in the HRA it's the Emperor who can enact laws, but wouldn't it be the Imperial Diet? Would that play a role? They'd like to have an Imperial Diet for the HRA, yes, although it's not implemented feature, and as before, they only do dev diaries about implemented features. So if this ends up being made, then we'll get it before, or we'll get it later. Will Galley recruit from our slave population if we don't have free oarsmen? The Maltese Navy would have struggled for manpower without the thousands of mostly heathen slave oarsmen. 12,000 slaves were freed upon the Holy League's victory at Lepanto, so it's not like we're talking insignificant numbers. It will be possible for countries with specific policies, yes. Basically recruit your naval... your the sailors for your navy being recruited from your slave population. Very interesting. I like that idea very much. Are there any laws at all that are tied to some gameplay mechanics in a way that's not a modifier? I guess literacy leading to local newspapers is something approaching this, but thinking more like military leadership laws where states decide who gets to lead armies instead of the player. It's possible to have policies that, following your example, may not allow low-born characters to command armies, yes. However, do not expect each policy to be like this. Just some. Makes sense. It's honestly so cool. Just to know how many policies we'll be able to stack for the same law. Will policies be culture-specific and or affect cultures as well? The design is one policy per law, so the player has to make a decision and can't stack infinite policies per law. Will we one day have a Tinto talk about the culture system? Yes. What about a talk about the character system? We'll talk more about the culture system in a future Tinto talk. I imagine this is supposed to be character, because, yeah, maybe. Is there a difference between the Holy Papal Inquisition and the secular, like, Spanish Inquisition? Are they both implemented as laws of the state? Papal-controlled and state-controlled Inquisitions are different available policies of the Inquisition law, which belongs to the religious laws category. Right then. No one expected that, for sure. Does this mean countries without them have to eat the massive stab hit? This is basically parliaments. Countries without parliaments, do they have to eat the massive stab hit every time they want to change laws? I don't think anything indicated that. Why would they change a law that was appointed by the rightful ruler in the first place? But they do need crown power if they don't want to rely on parliaments, though. Makes sense. You guys are trying to make the game with 600 years range, 1337 to 1936. Newspaper is not even in the Napoleonic era. Game will contain CK3, EU4, VIC3, and HOI4 combined. Well, no. The newspaper was based on the design of 18th century Sweden, and then he saw it was applicable to most of Europe during that time. So that's why newspapers are going to be a thing. I didn't do the research. Johan did the research. I trust him. If we're going from the same religious group, minus 10%, to any religious group, this is for the succession mechanics, on a change of the law, do we A, reset to 0 and grow to fit minus 50 over time? Or do we start from minus 10 and grow to minus 50? So you'll lose the minus 10 immediately, but then you'll start 10% of the next bonus to it, minus 5% or so. For a short period, they have better target satisfaction. Okay. That makes sense to me, probably. So you go from minus 10 to minus 50. It then goes to 0 and then starts growing quite quickly to the minus 50 because you've got a faraway target, I guess. I think that's how it works. Will England/GB have a special form of parliament or be represented by a generic parliament mechanic? They have some more or less unique aspects. Nice. Good to know. I'm begging for an answer. Is there an option to have the name of the overlord sprawl over their subjects' lands like in CK2? So to not show the subject name at all? Sure, I guess it's doable. I think maybe this means we may be getting it as a game option, potentially. This is also how it worked in Victoria 2 as well, to be fair. So maybe that will be great. And this is talking about Marcus, I believe. Because he's the one that gave the idea of changes over time rather than instant actions. Worst things in EU4, most actions are instant. And Johan's saying, yeah, he's great, but so are all my team. I'm so in awe of what they are creating. Same. I'm just going to give you a love react for that because it deserves one. I just hope unique laws make sense, like the papacy one, and aren't things that could easily be enacted elsewhere, but kept as unique for flavour reasons. Unique means non-generic. Sometimes country-tied, like papal succession, and sometimes culture or religion-tied, like Turkish succession. The first uses a more restrictive trigger, while the second one is more open. I just paid attention. I feel like you should have been paying attention for a while. The rulers have epithets by their name. I suppose they're dynamically generated. How big is the base for their nicknames? It's big. Trying to have as many as possible added for the historical study characters. They have some common dynamic database of nicknames, which is awesome. And finally, this is also really good to see that they're paying attention to this. A few people basically saying that the colorblind, or they are colorblind, so having red as negative modifier is essentially invisible. Red on green, bad. Like, I'm not colorblind, but I obviously want the game to be available for everyone to be able to play at the best possible way. So they are not yet working on the colorblind support. It is something they are scheduled to do in the future, and I imagine we're going to get some kind of dev diary about, here, look, this is what these things look like for this type of colorblindness. This is what this looks like for this type of colorblindness. And it is a game option for you to choose between, you know, what kind of colorblind you are and what works best for you. And I imagine some people who are not colorblind may end up using those modes anyway, as it might look, you know, more aesthetically pleasing to them. I think there was a game I played a little while back that I end up using a colorblind mode on just because it looked better. I forget the name of the game though. But yeah, no, that's it for today. It has been a long Tinto Talks reactions thing. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys got a lot of information out of this, and if you would like to continue gaining more and more information and knowledge about this most exciting game, then feel free to hit the subscribe button. I get a sub, you get informed, win-win. I keep saying that because it's true. Throw a like on it as well, and maybe let me know in the comments what you gleaned from this video. What was the most interesting part of the responses for you? Especially this stuff here and how the team works together. I'd like to know your thoughts on this, because this really I loved so much, and are my feelings shared by you? Let me know. Thank you all very much for watching. I will see you on Wednesday for another Tinto Talks. Bye bye.